If players get 5 full years of eligibility, Ohio State stands to benefit big. More experience, more depth, better roster.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Jay Stevens. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we're driven by the details. Highlights make the reel, but the work behind them makes it count. Stay tuned for this week's Moving the Game Forward, the all-new Mazda CX-5. More to move every side of you. During today's show, we will discuss why Jake Diebler scheduled a big neutral site game to open next season, as well as the potential impact that the new eligibility rules could have on recruiting. But first, at the end of last season, as you're looking at Ohio State's team and you're trying to get over the loss to Miami, you're looking at who Ohio State is keeping on the team and what guys are not able to play college football anymore. Yeah, Caleb Downs could play more college football, but he's off to the NFL. Arvell Reese could stay on the Buckeye team, but he's off to the NFL. Sonny Styles exhausted his eligibility. Another guy that exhausted his eligibility last year was Caden Curry, and he was one of those guys that I thought could benefit in a big way from a 5th year of playing college football, but the rules did not allow him to continue to wear the Buckeye uniform. Well, the NCAA is currently proposing, it's in the proposing stage, a eligibility rule change for all NCAA athletes, not just college football, but for basketball, for hockey, for the pistol team. They just won a national championship. They are looking at an overarching rule change for eligibility. It goes like this. NCAA athletes would have 5 full years of eligibility from the time they turn 19 or their high school graduation, basically whichever one comes first. There will be no waiver requests, no red shirts, or exceptions will be permitted, except for some certain outliers like maternity leave, military service, or even religious missions. And with this concept in mind, Ohio State and the football team, Ryan, they would benefit in a big way. Caden Curry is a big example of that. If he was able to stay at Ohio State for one more year and stay under Larry Johnson, stay under Ryan Day, stay under Matt Patricia, and he was just able to build upon the strong year he had last year, be a multi-year starter at Ohio State, be a guy that could lead the Buckeyes in sacks in back-to-back years. Also, he would be a block candidate for this upcoming year because he waited his turn. He does exemplify and portray everything you want in a Buckeye football player. That's just one guy that'll benefit for the Buckeye football team. But Ryan Day knows if you give him some of these players for 5 years and they say, well, there's no red shirts, so we're going to play you up to 4 games and then sit you, all of a sudden you're thinking, but I got 5 years. CJ Hicks is another one. He could easily have had another year or played a full year last year. Maybe it was not the best thing for him to play at Ohio State this upcoming season, but he would have had his 4th year of playing college football in a Buckeye uniform, and he could have helped himself be a better portal prospect this year. Now, Hartline leaving, it seemed like a no-brainer that he would go down to USF, but you don't know what happens if CJ Hicks was still able to play. For Jake Diebler, same thing. He has to figure out how to put a roster together and make it competitive year after year after year, and maybe having players there longer could do that. I don't know. I firmly don't know, but honestly, this would be a massive benefit for Ohio State. I don't think the rule is needed. I don't think the old rule is basically broken. I think when you're allowing guys to apply for waivers and things like that, I think you're diluting the product on the field and you're diluting the true mission and mindset of being a collegiate athlete and a student athlete in college. I mean, most of our lives, I'm in my, I sound old saying this, feel old. I'm in my late 30s, not an old man, but it feels like I'm getting to the age where, like, man, these numbers keep getting up there. I keep having to scroll a little bit further back when I have to put my the year that I was born on a document, and I'm like, my gosh, man, I'm getting up there, but I'm not, but I am. But most of my life, you had 4 years to play 5. You could redshirt if you transferred somewhere. You knew you had to sit out. I mean, there were some rules that were concrete, and some people didn't like them, but you knew that was a part of playing college sports, not just football, not just basketball, everything. People knew that was just a part of playing the sport in college. That's the way it was. I understand why you had to sit out academically. It benefited you to sit out a year instead of transferring, potentially losing credits, and then trying to play catch up while trying to get acclimated to a new team. I get all of those things, but when they allow people, this is the NCAA, when the players got more power and the players got to dictate more terms, and now you get a player like Jacoby Jackson. Now, it's not always like his fault. He's following the rules, but medical red shirts and things of that nature allow players to have a 5th year, a 6th year, a 7th year. I believe there's a player that's playing 9 years of football. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. There was a basketball player that was on a roster for 7 years. Now, there were some injuries and things like that went into why he was able to stay in college for so long. But at some point, you got to kind of reel this thing back in and not allow the players to have so much power. I'm not saying you shouldn't be a player's coach, but I think in the grand scheme of things in collegiate athletics, I think the players have so much power that they're going to try to do everything they can to push the limits. That's what you do. You were 18 years old. You were 24 years old at one point. Those are the ages of players playing collegiate athletics now. And when you were those ages, what did you do? You try to push the limits. I did it. I'm sure you did it. You tried to push the limits. And while you're trying to push the limits, you might go a little bit further than you thought, but that worked. Let's try this here. Oh, that worked. And the next thing you know, you're pushing the limits to a point where it leads to chaos, it leads to confusion, and it leads to the people that are truly in charge wondering, how do we allow ourselves to get here? Well, you allow the players, you allow people from the outside to influence your decision-making, and the next thing you know, here is where you are. I don't think the old rule was broken. I think they allowed the players to get a lot more power. I think that the courts started to get involved because the NCAA was not putting their foot down. And the next thing you know, you get some of the messes happening now. But also, to be honest with you, the whole situation that happened in 2020, where they tacked on an extra year of eligibility because they had to, for players that were on rosters in 2020, all of a sudden, that's where things started to get a little wacky. I'm not mad about them allowing players to have, or athletes to have, an extra year of eligibility. Think about it. Some spring sports didn't even happen. Baseball, softball, stuff shut down in America in the middle of 2020. Well, baseball season is just underway. You're not even getting to the heart of it yet. Of course, they had to shut that thing down, and they didn't even finish their own season. They didn't. I don't think the NCAA tournament even tipped off that year. If I remember right, I'm watching the Big East tournament, and they came on the broadcast and started talking about, well, this is going to be over. Like, what? What are you talking about? Well, stuff happened in that year, and the next thing you know, things were altered. Well, that's where the eligibility stuff started to get out of whack. There was some stuff prior that was here or there, but it wasn't as widespread as it is now. I hope the NCAA comes together and makes this happen, or if they don't make this happen, they put their foot down and put some concrete eligibility rules in place. If it's 5-5, cool. If it's 4-5 and go back to the old rules, cool. Either one will work, but they need to put their foot down and stand on business and make sure that everybody, not just the players, the coaches, everybody understands these are the rules, and from now on, we are going to follow them. Well, let's just say the NCAA goes on with the proposal and agrees to allow players to have 5 full years of eligibility. That's gonna have a direct impact on how Ryan Day builds a roster. How will it impact Ohio State recruiting moving forward if this goes into action? We'll discuss that after the break. This is Locked on Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. This is moving the game forward by Mazda. For those who know the score, never tells the whole story. And once again, a guy that to me is the perfect player for our moving the game forward player for right now. It's Amari Bynum. He was a freshman last year. He started off as a 6th man. He was thrown into the starting lineup, and he was a guy that you didn't want to take off the court. He was a spark plug. He was a really good rebounder. He had bounce. He threw that thing through the rim with force, and he was somebody that's not only going to be a big piece of the pie for next year's basketball team, but he's going to be a core player for a basketball team that Jake Diebler is trying to put together to be competitive next year, to not only make the NCAA tournament, but to make a tournament run. And if they accomplish those goals, Amari Bynum will be a big reason why. There's more to these players than the highlights. The early mornings, late night runs, constantly showing up for their squad on and off the court. The all-new Mazda CX-5 moves the same way, with more space to connect, a bold new design, and more intuitive technology, so you can stay connected to the road in every position you play. The all-new Mazda CX-5, more to move every side of you. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at TurboTax. It's tax time. But for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local. Once again, head to TurboTax.com/local. That's TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment today. Thank you for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes, which is part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, for making this show your first listen of the day. Get Locked On Buckeyes ad-free with the Everydayer Club, plus members-only Discord access and more. You're able to join the fun at LockedOnBuckeyes.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. The potential of having 5 full years of eligibility would be a massive benefit for a lot of players, but also it would provide potentially a big shift for Ohio State recruiting moving forward. Because if I'm Ryan Day, I think about how I could form a roster where it's no more, I got to potentially sit this guy after 4 games so we don't exhaust his eligibility, or like the old school rules, we get a transfer in, we got to sit the boy out. If you get 5 full years, you're able to have a roster that has more experience, more depth, and that's going to be a better roster overall from top to bottom. Because we know Ryan knows how to put a roster together when he's using high school recruiting, no matter if he's using the portal, whatever the case may be. We know Ryan Day knows how to build a roster. But think about what happened last year. Well, a few months ago. I say last year. My gosh. This offseason's been weird. A few months ago, there was a mass exodus, it seemed like, for the Buckeyes, where over 30 players from last year's roster went into the transfer portal. That's unheard of, you would think, at Ohio State, where that many players would be gone. But you get guys like a Quincy Porter, a Mylan Graham, a Bryce West, Aaron Scott Jr. You get these guys that are highly recruited players that have a lot of promise, a lot of potential, but they say, I want to go somewhere else and play football. Okay, that can happen. That will happen potentially again if these rules go into place. But Ryan Day is potentially going to go slow like he normally does to get his feet wet and to get a good handle on how the new way of working as a coach is going to work for him. I was trying to use a different word there, but that didn't work out. But once he figures things out, it's go time. He did it with the NIL. He did it with the portal. I wouldn't be shocked if when the new rules change, Ryan Day is maybe not as slow as he was previously, because he was talking about players potentially having 5 full years of eligibility before last season. So this isn't something that's just on Ryan Day's radar. It's been reported that this is picking up steam. And so Ryan Day knew this might happen. It was more so when it would happen, not if it would happen. If I'm a high school quarterback, I still want to come to Ohio State. But if I'm Ryan Day, could I potentially get a guy to be a 3-year starter or have something that's very similar to what happened with JT Barrett? Literally, I was thinking about this recently. The JT Barrett story is odd. 2013 was his freshman year. 2014, he was a starter, but he entered the year as a backup quarterback. So he started games. Full-time starter in 2020, 2014, 2016, and 2017. A 3-year full-time starter. In 2015, he split starting duties with Cardell Jones, but to me, he could have been a 4-year starter. He could have been the basketball version of Bruce Thornton. I mean, the football version of Bruce Thornton. That's what could have happened with JT Barrett. Well, you're not going to get that if the rules don't change. If the rules stay the way they are, you're not getting a guy who's going to be a 4-year starter. You can really say he was a 3.5-year starter, but you're not getting that. And so if that's the case, that's one way that Ryan Day knows this is how things are. Here's how we work with what's currently going on. Boom, we're great because I have a good handle on everything. The high school players, though, they may still want to come to Ohio State, but they got to realize recruiting classes might be a little bit smaller than normal. They are going to be competing with guys that are 3 or 4 years older than them to simply be in the 2 deep. Have fun. Go at it. This is the way things are now. That's what's up for grabs. That's what's at stake. And to me, Ryan is going to be able to figure this thing out. There are a lot of things when it comes to coaching in football or basketball, those 2 sports I know the best, that if you mess up a little bit, people are going to know. If you can't figure it out, people are going to know. But when it comes to Ryan Day, I'll go to Jake Diebler here in a second because I was trying to make this mainly a football conversation, but Diebler's a whole different character when it comes to this conversation. But Day knows he can do it. Diebler's trying to figure it out. And so if there was a rule change and it impacts your recruiting, you know Day's going to know, I need X amount of players for this year, X amount of players for the upcoming year, and it could be 2 different numbers. Diebler, I don't have a lot of faith in Jake Diebler to put a competitive roster together. This year's roster was the best for even Holtman's last year. I think this year's roster at the top at the end of the year was possibly better than Holtman's last year. The bench was worse, but the top end talent was with Thornton, Mobley, Bynum. With those 3 guys, yeah. I'm not the biggest Devin Royal fan as far as like overall basketball ability, playing ability. He's solid. I know it's a crystal ball for him to go to UConn, and I don't see that. I don't see why. I don't see why at all. But similar to how Ryan Day has figured out the current landscape on how to recruit and how to make things happen to have a strong competitive roster, Diebler is going to have to figure it out very, very quickly. Because if not, he's going to keep getting passed by teams that should not be better than the Buckeyes on the hardwood. There will be a direct impact on the recruiting. Recruiting classes would shrink. The recruiting classes would be full of guys that are Ohio State caliber guys, and you know that they know that coming in is going to be a whole lot harder than normal. But at the end of the day, hard isn't bad. Hard is going to help us be the best we can be at the end of the day. Speaking of doing things that's going to help a team be the best it can be, Jake Diebler just scheduled a big-time season opener for next year. Why would he make such a decision at this point in the offseason? I'll tell you why after the break. This is Locked on Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open when the pressure's on and you need the right hire. This is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is the job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Thank you all for tapping Locked On Buckeyes and for making the show your first listen of the day. Locked On Buckeyes is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, which is now the #1 sports podcast network. Speaking of a network being #1, Jake Diebler striving to be #1 next year, not just having the best roster that he's ever put together. That would be #1, but also #1 of the conference. And he knows there's an importance and a premium on scheduling big-time non-conference games, and it's a bonus if they're played on a neutral site. Well, it was recently announced by Field of 68, which is probably going to have to change their the name of the company when the tournament expands to 76. The Field of 68's Rocco Miller reported that BYU and Ohio State will meet in the season opener next year on Monday, November 2nd at the Delta Center. The game counts as it's a neutral site contest where the Delta Center is the home of the Utah Jazz and the Utah Mammoth, and it will likely have a return game coming to Ohio in the following year. I would assume they would play in the Cavs Arena. The name escapes me right now, but that's where I would assume that they would play to keep it in an NBA arena, a place where NCAA tournament games will be played. And this is a big moment for Jake Diebler. It continues a trend that he had last year, where last year Ohio State played Virginia in Nashville on Valentine's Day. It's an odd time to play a neutral site game. That's a non-conference game too. It's just very, very odd. But Jake Diebler knows if you can get your team to play a non-conference team on a neutral site at any point in the year, that is going to help you be more prepared for the NCAA tournament. Now, you can't be all the way prepared. There are some things you can't prepare for, like the emotions or the travel or winning a game on a Thursday, having to come back and play again on a Saturday with very little time to prep for your upcoming opponent. That's stuff you know about, but you don't really know what it's like to do that until you're in it. But Jake Diebler knew in that game against Virginia, Ohio State was close. They weren't better than Virginia. Everybody knew that going into the game. I didn't think the game would be as close as it was, but I understand why Ohio State played like they did, because they are a team that at times they end up playing. They played season's over. They played up to the level of their opponent. Jake Diebler must continue to do this as long as he is the head coach at Ohio State. Find ways to schedule big-time non-conference games in arenas where NCAA tournament games will be played, and you're going to find what he is doing is going to massively benefit the roster and the team that he put together in that year. Indianapolis is not that far from Columbus, Ohio. If Ohio State found a way to play, I'm not going to put a school out there, Cincinnati, which I think going to Indiana for a game against Cincinnati doesn't make the most sense. But if they were able to find a team, Cincinnati, let's play Cincinnati, not in Indianapolis, but play them in a neutral site, that would help you get ready for the tournament. I think if I'm Jake Diebler, I'm trying to play in venues that the tournament travels to. Go down to Nashville, go down to North Carolina, go down to Tampa, go all around the country, and you're going to find venues that host tournament games, and you can play non-conference games in those arenas. And I hope this continues. And I really, like last year, you got Duke and Michigan in D.C. in the 2026 calendar year. That's unheard of. I believe that was actually during like league play. Like both teams were in the midst of league play, very similar to Ohio State and Virginia. The next thing you know, they're not playing a league game. They're playing against, Duke and Virginia were two of the best teams of the country. Duke and Michigan, two of the best teams of the country. And you find a way to schedule that in the middle of the season. Dusty May, John Shire, hats off to y'all. I'll give WTA some credit when it's due. Hats off to y'all for making that happen. I grew up. I'm going back to my days, my younger days again, and it still happens now. But the Maui Invitational, that I was locked in, baby. I was locked in. I remember living in Arkansas. This would have been winter in 2012. I was at the Anytime Fitness, not far from the house we lived in, and I got on the treadmill, turned on the ESPN. Butler was playing in the Maui Invitational. I forget the point guard's name that year, but he hit a game winner, and I got excited. I literally, as I'm saying this, I vividly remember the gym, the treadmill, where I was, the excitement I had when homie made that shot, and that's the stuff I was looking forward to. Going down to the Battle for Atlantis and other holiday Thanksgiving type tournaments. I grew up on that kind of stuff. But even if you grew up on that, you're not playing a tournament with 8 teams in February or in January. You're not doing that. You wouldn't open your season with that either. So not only is it big for Ohio State to play in venues where they might play NCAA tournament games, but also you're trying to test your team early to figure out what they're made of. Not only test your team, you're trying to test your own work. It's tough to put a roster together. It's very hard. Yes, there is a financial piece to it. There is the chemistry with the players that are there, the chemistry with the coaching staff, the schematic fit. I mean, there is a lot that goes into putting a roster together. And if you want to test your ability to put a roster together in your all-season training and preparation for the upcoming year, play a team like BYU. Now, BYU is a team that is probably not going to have a similar roster to what they had this past year. They were 23-12 in this past season. They were the 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. They lost in the first round to Texas, who actually played a game in the first 4. So I would say it's a great mark for BYU, but you don't have AJ DeBanca anymore, who is expected to be one of the first guys taken in the upcoming NBA draft. Their number 2 and number 4 scores from this past year both went into the portal. Another guy who is a third leading scorer can't play college basketball anymore. So there's so many different pieces to the roster, the top end talent at BYU, that they are going to work to put a roster together that's very competitive, the same way Ohio State is. So both of them are going to strive to do the same thing right now, which is put a competitive roster together. You're going to have some off-season work and some workouts and some on-court drills and scrimmages. You may even have a scrimmage against another team that's behind closed doors. Won't really get that on the TV, but if you do, great. All of that is huge. So the importance of this game for the season opener is not just for the team and it get them to have a chance to play in an arena that you might play in the tournament, but also it's going to test your work, your off-season work, off-season practice, off-season drill work, off-season film study. It's going to test everything to see if you have done everything you needed to do to get your team ready to play a big-time opponent early in the year. It's a power conference team. No, BYU is not one of the best, like in Arizona. They are not in Iowa State. They are not Michigan. They are not Michigan State. They're not Iowa, Illinois. I mean, the list goes on. They're not one of those schools. But they are a school that has the funds to put a good roster together. They are very competitive. They are also going to be a team that could be on Ohio State's level. And if they are, that's a great way for you to test your work from the offseason to see if you're ready to battle night in and night out. I would highly encourage Ohio State, no matter who the head coach is, to continue to schedule games like this to open the year. Win or lose doesn't really matter. You want to make sure you're finding ways early to test your opponent, to test your team. I'm not a fan of you playing, like I'm used to them playing the IU Indies of the world to open the year, but I'll be a bigger fan of more games like this finding their way on Ohio State's basketball schedule. Thank y'all for tapping in Locked On Buckeyes and for making the show your first listen of the day. Remember, we will start to filter in some NFL draft shows right here to get you ready and up to date with what's going on with the draft and where players like Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Caden Curry, CJ Donaldson might get drafted in the 2026 NFL draft. If you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked on Buckeyes ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonbuckeyes.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make your second listen Locked On College Basketball. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked On Buckeyes on a Friday. We'll see you next time.